The member for Bass has the call.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Small Business. Minister, under Labor's extreme industrial relations changes, small and medium businesses will need to pay between $14,000 and $75,000 when dragged into compulsory multi-employer bargaining. Given small and family businesses are already facing higher interest repayments and rising energy prices, can the Minister inform the House what financial assistance the government will provide to these Australian businesses to help them meet these new costs?
Give the call to the Minister for Small Business, Housing and Homelessness.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and I thank the member for Bass for her question. There's no doubt, and I've said in this place, that small businesses have been doing it tough. They are dealing with rising, increased
Members
prices.
on my left.
And they are doing it tough in terms of increased mortgages and increased energy prices. But what we're doing in terms of the better pay secure jobs is what we're doing is we're trying to actually support small businesses and give them what they want. What we're doing here is giving them access to enterprise bargaining that will improve
The Leader of the Nationals will
productivity,
cease interjecting.
that will improve productivity and give businesses the benefit of negotiating with their employees. And indeed, when you go to the regulatory impact statement, Mr Speaker, and you do keep reading, it says, and I'm going to quote from it, Mr Speaker, it says, "The significant benefits of being covered by an enterprise agreement and the costs that may be associated with remaining covered by a modern award outweigh the additional costs for businesses to engage in the new multi-employer bargaining streams." Not to mention, Mr Speaker, that most small businesses will go into the cooperative stream where they'll be able to get off-the-shelf type products and it will cost them very, very little, and that's where we think most small businesses will go.
Order. When the House comes to order, the member for Moncrieff will cease interjecting. It's far too much noise. I want to be very clear with the House. There must be silence when questions are being asked. Ministers are entitled to answer questions in silence as well. Not mucking around today. I'll give the call to the member for Bendigo.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Treasurer. How is the Albanese Labor government working with investors to address some of the nation's big economic challenges?
Give the call to the Treasurer.
Thanks very much, Speaker, for the call, and thanks to the member for Bendigo for her second question this week. She's now asked as many questions in 4 days as the member for Humes asked me in more than 4 weeks. Mr Speaker.
Members on my left. Treasurer has the call and will be heard in silence.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. When we have our fair share of economic challenges and we have our
Member
fair share
Petrie is warned.
When we have our fair share of economic challenges in this country and we have our fair share of constraints on the budget, it's more important than ever that governments work with investors in our economy to try and satisfy some of our big national economic objectives. And there are ways that we can do that to ensure that investors get good returns for their investors and for their members when it comes to super funds, at the same time as we do address some of the big economic challenges which have been left unattended for too long in this country. And that's why tomorrow, for the first time, the Treasurer's Investor Roundtable will be convened in Sydney. And what the Investor Roundtable will do, it will bring together the 4 big banks, Macquarie, the industry funds, the retail funds, BlackRock and Blackbird, the Future Fund, representatives of the state treasurers and others, to begin to deal with and take advantage of some of the big challenges and opportunities that are in our economy right now. And around the table in Sydney tomorrow, there will be trillions of dollars of funds under management ready to find ways to get good returns at the same time as we address some of these challenges. And the first order of business tomorrow will be the government's housing accord. And I pay tribute to the Housing Minister for her work on the housing accord as part of our broader sweep of housing policies, which are so important to dealing with one of the biggest economic challenges we have around housing affordability. And the challenge is, when it comes to this particular part of the housing market that the housing accord will address, is when we've got low unemployment in this country, we need to make it easier for people to live near where the jobs and opportunities are being created. At a time of low vacancy rates and high rents, we need to make it easier. And so I welcome the interests of the big investors in this country, super funds, institutional investors, the banks and others, as we try and work together and come together to deal with this big economic challenge.